everyone, and welcome to the May 2023 edition of the Global Outlook video from the Economist Intelligence Unit. My name is Agathe Demarais, and I'm the Global Forecasting Director at EIU based in London. Today, I'm joined by Agnese Ortolani, a senior analyst in our Europe team based in Milan, and we're going to discuss EU-China relations. So Agnese, let's start with the scene-setting questions. How have relations between the European Union and China evolved since the start of the war in Ukraine?
So in 2019, the EU started calling China a partner, competitor, and systemic rival. Fast forward to 2023, and you will find that the general mood in Europe is that China is above all a systemic rival. Attitudes towards China have been hardening for several years now, mainly as a result of growing concerns over unfair competition, human rights violation, and fears of an invasion of Taiwan. In this context, China's declaration that its friendship with Russia has no limits, and its refusal to condemn Russian invasion of Ukraine has further strengthened EU-China ties that we expect to deteriorate further over the next 5 years.
And so listening to you, it sounds like decoupling may be the correct word, maybe to classify the relations. Do you expect a decoupling between the EU and China in the coming years?
Well, a full economic decoupling is unlikely. China's investment in the EU has declined since the introduction of new screening rules, but trade ties are resilient, and China, along with the US, is the EU's main trading partner. However, diversifying away from China has now become a clear political priority. And the war in Ukraine has shown that over-relying on a single supplier for key goods and commodities is risky and can have enormous economic consequences. And Europe is indeed over-reliant on China when it comes to critical resources that are key for the region's green transition. For instance, China accounts for about 98% of Europe's rare earth supply and 97% of lithium, while Europe imports about 80% of its solar panels from China.
That's huge. What is the EU doing to reduce this dependency, if it's doing anything at all?
Well, the EU is elaborating plans to produce domestically about 40% of its green technology by 2030, and has also set goals to make the bloc more self-reliant in mining, processing, and recycling of critical raw materials by 2030. And the US is also pressuring the EU into strengthening trade defense tools such as export controls and investment screenings. And the diversification of supply chains won't happen overnight, but it's not impossible. Japan, for instance, has successfully managed to cut reliance on China when it comes to raw materials in the space of a decade by relying more on Australia. And to this end, Europe is now looking at strengthening economic cooperation with alternative markets such as Canada or Australia, while there is also renewed interest in expanding trade ties with India, ASEAN, or Mercosur countries, among others.
Thanks so much, Agnese, and thanks to everyone for watching us today. See you next month.